So I've just watched the documentary Leaving Neverland, and it's made me feel incredibly uneasy and just sad, just very sad. And I posted about it on Facebook that I watched it and I wanted to know people's thoughts. And the audience was very much split into two sections. Those who thought that they had, or that there was like overwhelming evidence that he didn't do it. And then there were those who just I think we all know that it's true. I understand that there are going to be a lot of people who watch this and just think I'm full of absolute bullshit and that I'm caught up in, the world of cancel culture or, in not looking at evidence that clearly says that he didn't do it. But then I think to myself, when you abuse a child, what evidence is there? Like, what evidence in a room would suggest that you've abused a child? And watching this documentary and seeing people's responses to it has been just so fascinating. And the majority are saying that, he's not allowed to defend himself, so we shouldn't be talking about this, which I just think is absolute bullshit. You had people who don't feel safe, or they don't... look at Jimmy Savile. It wasn't until he died that everything sort of came out. And it wasn't until Bill Cosby was in this vulnerable position where people felt safe to go, this is what he did to me. And I feel like this is exactly the same with Michael Jackson. And while a lot of people see this absolutely, and he's a very talented, his music is incredible. Like, I love all his music. You see an icon, visionary, a talent, someone that did all this philanthropic work, who helped children, and then you see and hear this side that you just absolutely flat out refuse to believe ever existed, because it just ruins your hero in your mind. It just ruins who they are as a person, and you don't want to believe it, so you don't, and you put it over there. And then you look at all the things like what I find interesting is Wade Robson seems to be the target of everything, because he's the one that sort of wants, or it appears to want, a successful career. And just because he wants to be a famous choreographer means that he's in it for the fame and the money. You have obviously everyone trying to assassinate his character and make him completely unbelievable. And while you can convince people that Wade is lying, James, who's the other victim, you can't, there's nothing you can fault with him. And the reason why people think Wade is lying is because when they go back into his past, they list all these things that he did that were bad. But when you think about it, he's a victim of child abuse. Of course, his life is going to be tumultuous and a bit scandalous, and he's going to do things that are going to be very questionable. And I just find the things that they say about him can be easily explained by the fact that he was abused as a child. That does mentally stuff you up. And then people will say, well, he was really disappointed that he wasn't able to choreograph the This Is It show. He was angry that Michael said no to him choreographing This Is It. And this is him getting his retribution. And when you look at it, he was a young boy who idolised Michael, and Michael loved him. And Michael groomed him in a way that he believed the sexual abuse was just a natural part of being loved. And you had Wade always wanting Michael's attention and wanting to be loved and accepted. And you got that right up until Wade had kids of his own. And it was the same for James. It wasn't until these two sort of had children that they sort of took a step back and went, if this happened to my child, I would be horrified. I would kill him. Yet it happened to me as a child, but why do I not feel like I was abused? And here we are saying that because they testified under oath in a court, under a grand jury, that they did twice Wade testified twice. I think when he was 11, you can write that one off, and then again when he was 21. And he was still in that bubble at that stage, in denial and in this whole, in his head. And we just sort of say, well, he testified under oath, therefore that was obviously the truth, and we will accept nothing more. Which I just think is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. People just vehemently want to refuse to believe what Michael did to these boys. And you had 4 of them. You have 4 of them telling virtually the same story. The one in 94 who got paid off. The one in 2003 where it was found Michael Jackson was acquitted. And then you've got Wade and James. And they're saying the same thing. And just because they're saying the same thing doesn't mean it's true. But isn't there an air of skepticism? Like, you had a man that wanted these boys to sleep in his bed alone with no one else. And in 1994, when he settled this case, let's say for argument's sake, in 94, Michael Jackson's accuser was not molested by him. Didn't happen. It absolutely did not happen. Wouldn't Michael realise, and the people, the hundreds of people who worked for him around him, realise that there are ruthless and untrustworthy people that want to get to his money? So why don't we rethink the fact that you like to hang around with young boys and have them sleep in your room? So let's not do that. You're not molesting them, so why do you want them to sleep in your room? There's no real added value. So why don't we separate you, have you never sleep with any of them, so these allegations can never just crop up again? You know, and let's watch, you know, like your interactions with them and how you feel, and, you know, like, sadly, this is now what your life is. But none of that happened. It literally was straight back into it again. Sleepovers, all this other stuff. Like, was there no one in Michael's life that went, this is a really bad idea? No, because he was so wealthy and so powerful, and that's the first warning sign that after that settlement in 94, nothing in his life changed. As a person, if someone wrongly accused me of doing something so horrific like that, I would feel so just heartbroken and angry that I would be so cautious. I'd be so cautious about what I did, what I said, and how I acted, because people perceived that to be me doing something wrong, right? So in 94, when Michael Jackson was accused of sexual molestation of children, of a boy, and if he didn't do it, why was then his demeanour didn't change at all? And he still went on these holidays and these trips and did all these things, and you're sort of like, ooh, like, why are you doing that? Like, if you didn't do this, why are you anyway, but that doesn't prove anything. It's a really hard thing to prove. It's also a really hard thing to disprove. And I just don't think, unless you lived through these stories, unless you are Wade or James, I don't think we can really discredit them in any way. You can call them liars and cheats, and you can look at the things they do as weird or odd, but that's a sort of a product of their experience. They went through something super traumatic, and this is the result. Like, I did find it interesting that James kept some sort of memorabilia, which was the rings, these gold rings. And he said, this is the first time I've looked at it, I don't like them. And I was sort of like, well, why do you have them? That's my response. But I didn't go through what he went through. So I don't know the reasons why he has them. You look at what Wade did. When Wade came to terms with it, he had all this, like, priceless Michael Jackson memorabilia that would have sold for thousands of dollars, and he burnt it. Now, if he was desperate for money or wanting some sort of money, he could have sold that, but he didn't. He burnt it. He was so angry with what had happened that he burnt the jacket from Thriller, and he burnt the stuff Michael gave him. Notes, signed, like, just... I watched this documentary with an open mind, and I tried really hard to look for ways where their stories didn't work, or I'm trying hard to look for ulterior motives in Wade or James, and I can't see them. I cannot see them. I can see unfortunate circumstances that led to them being left alone with Michael Jackson. I can see the parents getting caught up in a glamorous lifestyle. If you're a parent, right, and you've got a young boy or a young girl, and a 34-year-old man who you loved and trusted, you know, an incredibly close friend, just like your best friend, who you loved and adored, came up to you and was like, oh, you know, your son can sleep over tonight, that's perfectly fine, you can sleep in my bed, great. Would you say yes? You know, oh, you're not in the same house as me though, you'll be staying just, you know, down there while your child sleeps in the bed with me. But this is someone that you love and trust. Do you say yes? Why? Why? Why would you want to sleep with a 7-year-old in your bed? Why, though? Like, what does it bring to you? You'll be asleep anyway. You won't even be talking. They're like, why? Why can't they sleep over there in their own room? You're asleep. What does it matter? Oh, you can have fun, watch movies and eat popcorn, and then go and sleep in separate rooms. That's the thing I don't understand. And then saying, oh, he had a rough childhood. Yeah, he had probably the worst childhood of all time. Michael Jackson was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by his father. LaToya Jackson says that that the father sexually abused them. We know that the father was rude and beat them. You know, Michael Jackson had such a complex because his father and even his brothers said he had a big nose. They didn't like the way he looked. This was an incredibly troubled man who probably had one of the worst childhoods, but then just became incredibly powerful. And sadly, you know, used that power for good, but also did unspeakable things as well. And I don't know.